cognizant of time. Let's see. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Nina Ha, and I am the director of the APIDA Plus Center, which is where you are located in person. If you're on Zoom, welcome in Zoom land. In Zoom land, you won't get food, but sorry. Before we begin, I always like to start with the land and labor acknowledgement. So Virginia Tech acknowledges that we live and work on the Tutelo and Monacan people's homeland, and we recognize their continued relationships with their lands and waterways. We further acknowledge that the Morrill Land Grant College Act of 1862 enabled the Commonwealth of Virginia to finance and found Virginia Tech through the forced removal of Native nations from their lands in California and other areas in the West. Virginia Tech also acknowledges that its Blacksburg campus sits partly on land that was previously the site of the Smithfield and Solitude plantations owned by the members of the Preston family. Between the 1770s and the 1860s, the Prestons and the other local white families that owned parcels of what became Virginia Tech also owned hundreds of enslaved people. Enslaved Black people generated resources that financed Virginia Tech's predecessor institution, the Preston and Nolan Institute, and they also worked on the construction of its building. So I always like to start with that, especially when we're hosting events. Welcome, everyone. April is the APIDA Heritage Month. So usually AAPI month is acknowledged in May, but because universities and colleges end in most likely April, because May you're all scattered. We have a lot of events and programs acknowledging APIDA heritage in the US. And so for April, we have a lot of events and programs. As you can see, this week we have 6 events and programs in 3 days. So just to be aware of that. The theme for this year's APIDA Heritage Month is building APIDA leaders. So really trying to acknowledge where the APIDA leaders, not only at Virginia Tech, but also around the country too. For this event, what I'd like to acknowledge too is thank you to the students who brought this theme, this sort of topic to our attention and to raise awareness around the issue of caste at Virginia Tech and also nationally as well. The APIDA Plus Center, as well as all the cultural and community centers, really are responsive when students ask us to sort of to raise awareness for these issues. And so we try to support them in any way that we can. So without further ado, because this is not my program, it is all yours. We will start here.
All right. So hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Purvesh Dongre. I'm a PhD student in the CS department here at Virginia Tech. April is also Dalit History Month. Dalit is a category, a caste category that I'll talk more about in my experience. But I want to wish everyone happy Dalit History Month. And I also want to wish everyone a very happy Dr. Ambedkar Jayanti. That was 2 days ago. April 14th is when we celebrate his birthday. And the organization that we represent and is called Dr. Ambedkar International Mission. It was named after him. So Dr. Ambedkar's birthday is a big event for us. It's a big celebration for us. So I really want to wish everyone a very happy Ambedkar Jayanti, belated Ambedkar Jayanti. So like I said, the organization's name is Dr. Ambedkar International Mission, and this organization was formed to support, represent, and protect students who come from marginalized caste communities or lower caste communities, which in other words are also called scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes. So caste, I'll take a look at my notes here because I don't want to forget anything that I want to say. So caste is a social hierarchical structure that is used to divide people based on their profession. I mean, that was how it was supposed to be. it was a social hierarchical structure that, like, if you do a certain kind of job, then you will belong to a certain category or a certain caste. So the Brahmins, the topmost caste, they were the scholarly caste. They would study, do a lot of literature work. The Kshatriyas were the warrior class, or the warrior people, warrior clan, that would help maintain peace around the area. The Vaishyas were the business caste that would, like I said, do business and make trade. And there is also a category called the Shudras, that is the lowermost caste category, and they were essentially servants to the other caste categories. There's another category that is uh, below all these categories, so low that it wasn't even considered part of the caste system. And this category is called untouchables, and that's how they used to call it, untouchables. That they're so low and they're so uh, bad that you can't even, you're not even allowed to touch them. And untouchables are, I mean, that is the name that was given to them, which has translated now to other names like Dalits or the scheduled caste. And I apparently come from that caste category. Uh, and so that's how it was supposed to be, based on how your profession is. But it soon translated into a method of asserting power and uh, so it instead of having people based on the kind of work or profession they do, it became a system wherein if you're born in a certain kind of family, then you would stay in that caste category for your entire life. So it became by birth and not by profession. And again, it was done to practice discrimination and assert power and assert dominance over people who are weak. Uh, so with that example, I mean, I want to share a personal incident that happened to me. So, like, now I'm doing my PhD here at Virginia Tech, and I did my bachelor's degree, I did my master's degree, and I'm doing my PhD. And in that regard, and I also want to become an academician, like I want to go and teach. And so in that regard, I should qualify as a Brahmin because Brahmins are supposed to do that. That's their profession. And if that is my profession, then I should be a Brahmin. But when I gave this argument to a Brahmin friend, he laughed at me. He's like, you cannot be a Brahmin. Brahmin is altogether different category. And this is my friend and my dear friend and my roommate who was here living with me at Virginia Tech in Blacksburg. So he laughed at me. He's like, no, even if you do a PhD, even if you become a professor, you cannot be qualified to be a Brahmin. Brahmin is by birth. And no matter how much you try, whatever you do, you would never be same as us. On top of it, like when I talked to him about Dr. Ambedkar, and because I'm very vocal about these topics, and when I was talking to him about Dr. Ambedkar, he made fun of Dr. Ambedkar. He said, and I quote, he is the stupidest guy that I've ever seen. That's what he said. A fellow Brahmin Indian roommate said this word. And I kind of question, like, if similar things were said towards some other religions or some other personalities that people follow here in the US, what would be the consequences or the repercussions? And more than the consequences and the repercussions, the reason for sharing the story uh, is to make you all believe that these systems and these biases, they still exist on campus and in Virginia Tech. And I have been a victim of such experiences. And yes, I would not say that this person practiced untouchability with me. No, he did not do that. But he definitely had his sets of biases against me. And again, the message that was given to me was, no matter how much you try, no matter what you do, how qualified you are, it does not matter. You would still belong to that category because you are born in that category. So the reason for sharing this experience and is to, again, like I said, help other people recognize that these things and also still exist in one form or the other. And my story is like one of the other stories that people hear, because we have our members of the organization. We have Raghav, we have Kavya joining online. We also have Chinmay. So all of these students are members of the organization and they've experienced caste discrimination in one form or the other. And they will share their experience and to give more evidence on this and how this exists and how is it's practiced in Blacksburg, in Virginia Tech, or in the US. But before they do that, I just want to share that this organization was formed with the need of supporting lower caste people, but it's open to everyone. We invite everyone who supports our cause or who wants to contribute in some way or the other. So it's open for everyone. And as a part of this organization, we do various events. One of this event to raise awareness about these things existing on campus, but we also do other events like screening movies and having some fun events. So if you think of yourself as an ally, and if you want to join the organization, please feel free to reach out to us and join us. And I am also happy to share that our organization, even though it's been only 1 year that we were formed, less than 1 year, because I think we were formed in sometime in May or June. Even with that less time on campus, we are nominated as in the category of the best student organization among 8 other student organizations at Virginia Tech by the Graduate Student Services. So that's an achievement for us, and I would like to congratulate the whole team. That includes Radha, Kavya, Chinmay, and also Dr. Bonnie Zare, because she has been mentoring us organization ever since we were formed. And with that, I would want to pass on pass on the mic to Raghav, who is also the treasurer of our organization, and I would ask him to share his story.
Sure. Hello, everyone, first of all. Thank you for organizing APIDA, and also thank you, Purvish, for letting me talk in this. And I want to not make it very serious, and I just want to make it more of a conversation where I will still share my experiences. I had all of this happened in Blacksburg with the Virginia Tech community members, and these experiences were not. I would say someone was also mentioning it's a microaggression. It's not like they might or might not have done it intentionally, but when you come across a lot of these microaggressions, you feel okay, something is going wrong, and that's how I also felt. So first, I will be talking about food. So I'm certainly not looking into any of your bowls on what you are eating. So one of the things is I eat meat. I eat all kinds of meat which are edible and eatable. And of course, there are many ethical reasons you might choose a vegetarian food or non-dairy food or whatever that means to you. It can be something related to climate change. It can be something related to killing of animals and all those. But I totally understand all these arguments. But the questions directed at me were not necessarily these. They were actually trying to find my identity of some sort. So I will generally quote it as, is it me or the food? I have always had this question. Do they not like my food, or do they actually not like me? So let me just go into some small experiences. So I know someone who knew very well that I eat meat, but one day that person actually saw me cooking meat, and then he got very surprised and asked me, "Does your family cook meat?" Uh, like, why is this question coming, and where is this question coming from? I just leave it at that. And someone asked me, "You are eating meat. Why don't you drink as well?" Uh, in Indian culture, possibly both are considered as not exactly, I would say, Indian culture. In the upper caste culture, both are considered equally bad. So I don't know. I do not drink personally for my own health and for my own personal reasons, but they are not okay with that. And someone also told me it is easy for you in the US because you eat meat and meat is just available everywhere. And someone also said me, eating meat is the reason for the origin of COVID. So,
Now that's solved.
yeah. And there are people who told me Indians are originally vegetarians and you guys started eating by Western influence, which is again not a true statement. And some people I meet directly ask me without any context of food, they just ask me, are you vegetarian? So why are they interested in whether I am a vegetarian or not? It's something I had this question always. And if someone asked me that, if I asked back, like, do you prefer vegetarian? They always mention their caste or their religion and say, that's why I am a vegetarian. But there is no need of like mentioning that. And there can be so many reasons again for choosing to be a vegetarian. And I had personal experiences where someone refused to eat at my apartment because it is not, I don't know, you should ask them for their reason. And someone right here in a famous restaurant here refused to pass a bowl which had some meat dish in it. And someone refused to again accept a vegetarian food cooked by me because I might have used that dish for a non-vegetarian food. So these are some experiences. And I mean, if you come across a lot of these experiences, you start feeling like, okay, I should not show what I eat. I still eat what I want, but I will not really, sometimes let's say I go to conferences, if I find some people from Indian origin, I try to hide what I eat, but I just eat whatever I want. So this kind of experiences also translate to those kind of behaviors. So I was just asked to talk about food, so I will just stop here and maybe let others talk about other things which matter to them. Thank you.
So Kavya, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. So, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, hi, my name's Kavya Thamal Mudalwan, and I'm from Chennai, same place as Raghav. And currently, I'm pursuing my master's in industrial and systems engineering. And I come from a family where education and professional achievements is highly valued. And my father is a retired chief general manager from Chennai Petroleum. My mom did her B Farm in pharmacy. I mean, she did her pharmacy degree. My sister Navina, she works for Ernst and Young. She's in Canada, living with her husband Venkatesh, who's also a plant manager. And outside these academic pursuits, I enjoy playing tennis, and currently I love playing pickleball. So I'm not a reader, but I love picking up a book from time to time. I love cooking. So why am I sharing all this unnecessary information? Just to illustrate that on surface, my life and your life might appear quite typical, and my life might also appear privileged to some. However, despite these privileges, the pervasive influence of caste system has touched my life as well. And that kind of reminds us that these social structures often reach way further than we might expect. So today I'm here to share my personal experiences on how the caste system has influenced my romantic relationships and also for the people around me. So, and also I'd like to put spotlight on the enduring relevance of educational employment reservations as pillars of social equity. So I hope to explain why, even for someone like me who might appear to have a lesser need for some reservation, these measures still remain vital even today, and they level the playing field in today's India and in the US. So my parents asked the recording of this meeting, so I must be very careful about what I share. And so, so I want to start. I want to set the ground by talking about my first experience with caste discrimination in romantic relationships, and it goes way back to 11th grade. So I moved from an all-girls school to a co-ed one, and that school upheld Brahminical traditions. And a guy had a crush on me. Yay! But he very openly admitted to his friends that despite his feelings, a relationship could never happen between us because his family won't accept me. And this was in 11th grade. And it was funny that day. And I shrugged it off, saying, like, I'm going to date him. But this is something that followed me throughout, even after. So, coming to the US, I'll be sharing 3 such incidents, 2 of which happening to me, and one is happened to a close friend. So, when I came here, as soon as I joined Virginia Tech, this happened on campus. I had a crush on a guy. And he was also from the same state as I am. So, we were getting along pretty well from the minute we met. And as slowly, I am very vocal about these things. And slowly, I started discussing about the type of wedding we do back at home. So we do something called self-respect marriage, which is free from, it's a very secular wedding, which is free from any rituals and a lot of patriarchal traditions. So that's why it's called self-respect marriage. And I said, I would want to do that type of wedding as well. And the guy ran for his life. He found these ideas to be too revolutionary and just disappeared out of my life. So this is one thing that happened. And it's not just something that's happened to me. This is one of my sister's friends who's also close. His mom is very close to my mom. He works for Meta as a senior software engineer, so a lot of money. And he had a girlfriend. They were deeply in love. They really liked each other, and the girl actually made the effort to go to India and let her parents know that, hey, I'm in love with this guy, and we're good together, blah blah. But after coming back from India, she started ghosting him. She just disappeared. And the reason behind it was not because love was lost. It was not lost to fate, but to the rigid hands of grass-fed prejudice, where her parents kind of blackmailed her. I don't know if that's a strong term, into saying we will commit suicide or we're not going to accept this, so you can't live with this guy. They just didn't accept it, even though he is very educationally very forward. He studied in New York, he's working for Meta, and economically forward as well. But this did not help his social backwardness. So, next story is again coming back to me. So, I'm going to refer to this person as my roommate. Hi, mom and dad. So we met when I was doing my internship. So that's how we were roommates. That's how we got to know each other. Such a good man, very well behaved, smart, intelligent, and as roommates, we got along very well, and we were living together. So we really enjoyed each other's company, and naturally, we liked each other, and we wanted to take things further, and we wanted to discuss and see if it'll work or not. And the first thing that it was put forth is, I don't know if my family will be welcoming of someone who eats beef. So that is indirectly saying, oh, your caste is not okay. So, I mean, pretty direct, actually, not indirect now that I think about it. So, even today, in a world, in this world where I live in the US, when it comes to serious relationships, you just cannot escape caste. We both are going to be working for the same company, probably similar pay. We hold the same degree in industrial engineering, and we're 7 seas across India, our country, but still, caste plays a pivotal role. And I don't seem to be able to escape it. So, all of these incidents, they've happened in the last 2 years that I've been here. So when someone tells me who sees caste now, it's so outdated, I I can't help but like feel the surge of frustration. I get so offended. I'm like, really? Do you know me? So how can we progress if arranged marriages rarely cross caste boundaries, and it's easily hidden under the guise of seeking familiarity? So it's just like we marry within our caste because they're familiar. That's how it's shucked up, and that's how they don't let us talk about it. So how do we bridge these divides? We have to intermingle somehow, right? yes, educational and economical forwardness does not mean that we become socially forward magically. No, it doesn't happen. Supposed to, ideally it should, but doesn't happen. So we're still considered as lower castes, as caste is determined as at birth and does not change. However, being educational and financially independent and forward does give hope. So my presence here, articulating the truth, is a testament to the power of these reservation policies that I had and that I'm here. And I feel because I studied in reservation that I was able to make it to a place like Virginia Tech and talk about my problems where all of you all are listening. So these policies, they don't dilute merit in any way. They enrich it by fostering a truly diverse and inclusive society. And I think of the reservation system in India, where everyone, every caste, the scheduled castes and the OBCs, other backward castes, everyone's represented. The scheduled tribes, we're all represented. And yeah, reservation is representation, and that's how I'm here. So till date, many assume that Dalits or lower caste people are dark-skinned people who lack education and do menial jobs. Yes, predominantly, but because of this system that we have in India, we're somehow able to level the playing field to an extent. And why it's still necessary? We've this caste system has been in India for over 3,500 years, and it does not dissolve overnight. Even 100 years is not enough. I still need people to look up to. And till date, when we say Dalit and we say, oh, who do we look up to? Till date, we only have Ambedkar to look up to. I mean, yes, we do have other role models, but the predominant figure still happens to be Dr. Ambedkar. So every reservation made engineer, doctor, or scholar should be a step towards erasing those caste lines. It enables or forces intermingling of caste and it promotes fraternity. So yeah, and as an engineer, I want to say this: caste is something that affects everyone. How? So caste issues resemble a rate determining step in a reaction. So the bottleneck that kind of dictates the pace of progress. So our collective advancements depends on uplifting the most marginalized. So the overall rate of development in India is going to depend on, or in the US, going to depend on uplifting marginalized people like us, like me. So change is happening, but it requires deliberate effort. It requires very conscious effort. It's not just happening because, oh, it's evolving, it'll change with time. No, it's because of conscious effort of people like Dr. Ambedkar and everyone else involved that it is actually happening. In my family, intercaste and interreligious marriages are not only common, but they're also celebrated and very successful. My sister's marriage to a Brahmin and the support she's received is a testament to the changing tides. I'm not going to say, oh, everyone's bad caste. Still is very rigid. No, it is changing, but is it enough is the question. So, yeah, so development of the lowest rung of the society is what's important. And their relationship is going very well. My roommate and I are still friends. So, and we've decided to it's a problem at a time. So when it comes to romantic relationships, at least, instead of letting caste take the front seat, let love take over. I know it sounds cheesy, but that's what it is. And remember to improve your lifestyle. Economic independence is very important, and don't hesitate to fall in love. So to end, let's embrace Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He says marriage can be founded on love, which can be described in no other terms except a longing to belong. So let us nurture this longing and may it resonate so deeply that it invites others to see, understand, and embrace us within the fold of their community. Thank you for listening, and let's continue to bridge these gaps one story at a time and one relationship at a time. Jai Bhim. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavya. You spoke like a chemical engineer indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we have Chinmay. Chinmay, if you want to share your experience.
Hey guys, my name is Chinmay. I graduated from Virginia Tech in 2020 with my master's degree in civil engineering. I'm working in Austin with a developer firm right now. So my story is from Austin. It's still important because the person I had this incident with has a similar career path than that, like most of us do. We come from India, we do our masters, and we start working at a company, and we still find places we kind of meet and find our Indian community and whatnot. So this is we were at a badminton court, we were playing, and this guy, out of a lot of other people, spoke my language. He comes from North India, I come from North India, so we naturally bonded. It's easier to bond. So he started asking questions like, hey, just regular questions. How long you have been in US? What's your background? What's your major? Etc. Etc. First set of questions, I was okay, cool, nothing biggie. Moved on. Second game, second pause. Next question is, where's your family from? I was like, okay, I'm from here, northern part of North India. What does your family do? They're all businessmen or professionals turned businessmen. End of story. Next game, next pause, third line of questions. You've been in US for almost 4 years. You must have eaten all kinds of meats by now. And I didn't get that question, but I felt very proud, like, oh yes, I have, because I was a vegetarian in India. I like food, so I just tried everything I could here, like I went bonkers with any kind of meat I could find. So, and sorry, but yeah, I did, and I was like, oh, I ate this, I ate this, I did that. I gave him a list of things. Next game, next break, he's like, you must not be Brahmin, are you? And that's when everything, like, wait, so this was the line of questioning you were trying to get at. At the end, you all you wanted to know was who I was. I was blank for almost 30 seconds. He thought I didn't hear him. So he's like, are you Brahmin? I was like, why does it matter? He's like, no, but you must be something. I was like, yeah. So my last name doesn't really give anything away. Sometimes names are associated with a caste. My last name doesn't really give anything away. It's sometimes even it's a locational name. So I've come from a place called Nagaur, so my name is Nagori. That's it. And a lot of Muslims from that place went all over India. So that name is quite popular among Muslims. So he was first set of the screening was, am I Hindu or am I Muslim? Once I'm Hindu, what caste are you? And if that's an acceptable subset, then maybe this can go forward or whatnot. So I did respond him with my caste, like this is my caste, and he's like, "Oh, you're okay." I was like, "Wait, what is that response?" If I gave you, for example, let's just say a low caste. I hate saying this word, but if you were a low caste, if I were a low caste, would that change everything? The past hour and a half that we played together and we bonded over and whatnot. And 2 days after that incident, we had Indian festival. He invited me over. We had a good time. I'm just thinking, if that answer was not something he was expecting it to be, would I never had that? Like, so kind of concluding with what Raghav went through, what Purvesh went through, what Kaviya went through. Like, these are set of questions everybody puts you into and kind of try to figure out who you are. And based upon the answers, they start treating you otherwise. I'm on the fortunate side of things that I am not. Again, I'm sorry when I say this. I'm not low caste. I come from a privileged caste. I come from a privileged family and all that stuff. But I see this and this irritates the hell out of me. Like, why do you even want to know? That question would not be asked to, let's just say, an American. Like, hey, what caste? No. If somebody says I eat meat, I come from this place. I come from Colorado. My family is a businessman, professional son, businessman. That's the end of that conversation. They don't even want to know the next part of your identity. It should not be. It has to not be part of your identity. So it irritates me, and that's why I'm here. I am part of this group. I want to talk to people, and my only question to everybody who asks me this question is, what would you do if I tell you my answer? Like, what good does it bring you? What changes and why does it change? And that's when the conversation I try to start the conversation with them. And yeah, that's my story. I mean, I'm just trying to have conversations with people and try to change it, again, one person at a time.
Thank you, Chinmay.
Thank you.
So I think what we're trying to suggest here is the kind of idols we follow, kind of food we eat, the kind of last names that we have, or the kind of relationships we want to go into. They, on the surface, they may not feel very harmful. Like, okay, I mean, these are preferences, individual choices, preferences. But these are only identifiers to your caste identity and your caste position, which then determines the other person's behavior towards you. So, and again, this is not maybe practicing untouchability or practicing caste discrimination to the extreme extent as it's still done in India and in certain places, but it's still a form of discrimination. It's a form of uh, isolation that could put people like me and Raghav and Kavya into and make us feel not part of the community that we have here in the US. And to kind of address that, we have this organization. We try to build a local support system for our students, for students who come from these communities, so that they can feel at home, they can feel that they belong, and they can have these conversations and feel that okay, they have some space there and they can go and talk about it. But I also tend to believe that there are a lot of students who come from these marginalized caste categories who prefer to not reveal their identity. Caste, unlike race, is not easily identifiable. It's only, again, through questions like these, through preferences, through last name, that one can identify what caste position you're coming from. And people can easily get away with their caste identities. Like they can say, no, I'm a Brahmin. And they would hide their identity so that they can maintain their social structure, their group of friends, and their professional network that they have. So that, because again, when people get to know about your caste position, they start treating you differently. They exclude you out of their social circles, they exclude you out of their professional networks, and it has a lot of consequence when it's come to that. And that is why I kind of empathize with the idea of people hiding their identity, because it comes at a cost. And not everyone is willing to pay that cost, and I can understand that. And but what it does is it creates a suffocating environment for these people. Like, imagine yourself trying to hide who you are just because you want to say safe. That's not a good place to be at. So, and I think that's why we are trying to have such organizations in different parts of the country, raise awareness about caste and create a more inclusive environment for our students. So with that, I'll end my part, and I'll open the floor for questions. So if anyone has any questions or any ideas or anything that they want to discuss, we can do that.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So, like, do you feel comfortable hanging out with Indians compared to like hanging out with your foreign friends?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I understand, because I felt the same way when I was in high school.
Yeah, it's because I am very vocal about my identity. And when I talk about it, most Indians become uncomfortable. And then they stop hanging out with me. I'm like, okay, let's not do that. Let's try to hang out with international people who don't have these biases.
I mean, that's what I did too. I mean, but that had benefit that my English improved really rapidly.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's an advantage.
Even in my professional circle, there are not many Indians. And I do not, so the Indian Students Association here also do not cater to the marginalized people. So I stay away from the Indian Student Association student group, and most of us do as well.
And it's not that we didn't try to reach out to these associations or these people. Like, we didn't have any bias. We like, the first set of friends that I made were, of course, Indians.
Yeah.
The first group that I hung out with was the Indian associations that we have. But as soon as I went there and I announced my identity, people got uncomfortable. Like, no, we don't talk about these things there. And that's why, like, okay, if you're not comfortable, then maybe I should take my leave.
I have a question. So from a faculty's perspective, like, what's the expectation around like support? So you all mentioned microaggressions, maybe social isolation. Some of these things are like, if you're not a part of the conversation, you may not catch it. or you may not even know, may not really, you might think something's happening, but if you're not there, you may not miss it. So what does support look like from a faculty's perspective? Like something that's going on, you experience a microaggression. Yeah, what does that look like? What does that feel like for you?
So it's to explain this to, again, because there is very little awareness about caste, it's very difficult to explain to a faculty themselves what does it feel like. But what could be done is to again have caste added as a protected category, have more awareness campaigns around caste, maybe also add caste in the trainings that are done for faculties and for other employees, so that people know that these things exist. I mean, raising awareness and getting educated is the first step. And if the second step would be, if a faculty is aware of these aspects, then maybe they can make sure that if they are recruiting a group of Indian students, then what uh, caste identities or positions they come from, and if they have certain beliefs or biases that would make the lab environment unhealthy. Because if you have a lot of Indian students and if they are not agreeing to a lot of things when it comes to caste, then maybe it can create some animosity in the lab. So just me being aware of it, just asking some casual questions about caste to students, especially Indian students or South Asian students in general, maybe can help. And maybe, again, we have reservations in India. We have affirmative action in India for people who come from these communities. So if a lab director wants to give some affirmative action or reservations to students who come from these backgrounds, and that is also something that could be done to help these students.
Purvesh, you must be offending a lot of Indians now. Like
Yeah, of
reservation
course.
here as well.
I have been doing that for my whole life, so I'm okay with that.
I just didn't understand that last part you said. So you said something about formative and how like there's specific things that are being done in India. Can you just explain that just a little bit more?
The affirmative action part.
Oh, affirmative action.
Yeah.
Okay, my fault. So
reservation is something very similar to affirmative action that we have here. So if again lab directors or faculties they want to give these students more visibility, more chances, then maybe they can have some considerations towards students who come from these backgrounds, from marginalized caste communities. That is something at their personal level, and also maybe at the departmental level. Again, I'm not sure how administratively it's possible, but if someone can do that, then it would definitely help our students.
yeah, I also just want to say like I don't know much about like the trainings that tech does, but like when I have done like student trainings, I don't think we've ever talked about that
Yeah.
in the diversity portion. And then like even in DEI, like I don't think, and I might be speaking incorrectly, I'm not sure, it's been a minute, but I don't think DEI, at least at tech, talks about caste.
No.
Yeah.
So that reminds me of our meeting with Harrison Blythe.
Yeah, and
So Harrison Blythe is at the Office of Equity and Accessibility here at Virginia Tech, and Bonnie and we happened to meet him with I think it was the second meeting that we had with the OE officials, and Harrison said that he would try to, and I cannot quote him on this, but he said he will try to add caste to the training.
yeah, he's open to our suggestions
Yeah.
anyway.
So, but I'm not sure how much it's done.
We can maybe work on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Kavya would like to talk. So, sure. Kavya?
Oh, no. So that's not me.
Oh, that's not you.
Yeah.
Another
I
Kavya?
wanted to add as an anonymous member.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
We have one anonymous member.
Yeah.
Because they're anonymous, I don't want to reveal where they are from, but they've had some experiences with caste in their academic pursuits as well. So they are here and they would want to also share their story. So very quickly, if you can summarize your experiences and let us know what you're going through.
yeah. So just wanted to say one thing. They are actually, you know, they are actually like reduced. Like it's a question of our dignity. Like they are just suppressing us just because once they know who you are, and if you are become active, if you are become smart, if you are taking more than what you are deserving, these things comes into the picture. I know the food, the culture, and all that things are there, but if you just add Ambedkarite movement or Ambedkarism, like, or equality, if you talk about even equality, you are just out of their circle, and that is what I can see for myself. So it is not about like food, and it's about like the dignity, it's about the equality, it is about the respect. And I feel like you just add the Ambedkar name, and then you are out of, like, you like easily identify from what caste you are coming from, and basically that's what actually I'm suffering. Yeah, I just wanted to add that thing. Caste is there, caste system is there, and they don't want to give you something. If you are coming, or if you are just making yourself smarter than them, they will kick you. That's what their motto is. If you are just making slaves of them, they are happy. If you are like, if you are just listening what they are saying, nothing will happen to you. You are into their circle, and you need to like understand, and you follow their culture, you follow their religion, you follow their food, and they are fine. But when you say we have a separate identity, they are not accepting that. Yeah, that is what the caste is. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience. So again, if there are any other questions, I mean, I can.
Can we clap?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, even though they are anonymous, I think it's a very brave act for them to come out and share their experience with us, because it comes at the cost of their academic pursuits, let's say that, and they're still risking that to share their experience with us. So big applause for that. Again, I can go on and on. I have a lot of things to say, but if you have more questions, and if other panelists, Raghav, Kavya, you can ask questions to them also. Yeah.
So with the whole mentality of this, like these kind of people who do this, right? Like, what are the like reinforcing ideas that cause the status quo to stay the way it is? Like what? And like, sure, there's like the societal side in India, right? There's the economics. People in power want to stay in power. When they come here, what keeps them that way? Right? And this might not be something you guys have more answer on. Just if you guys have any insight.
I do have an answer, but maybe I would want to give other people a chance to speak.
Is anyone Kavya?
No, go for it. Yeah.
From my side, one thing I know is in India, they are in general privileged in terms of education, in terms of general information about, getting the US visa and all those, and also money. So here, the percentage is skewed, much more skewed towards privileged people here. And here, they can, most of us who are coming here are engineers, and they are also in general tend to be whatever caste they come from, they are more they have more power, and they have more privilege, and they earn more money in general.
They grew up.
Yeah. So I feel they in general have more decision-making power, and from my experience, they feel like, Ambedkar, we talk about Ambedkar, and Ambedkar wrote the constitution in India. And that protects so many people from a lot of things happening. And here, there is nothing called caste yet officially. So that makes a lot of difference as well. Like, maybe others can.
Kavya, Chinmay, do you have something to add to that?
I couldn't hear his question properly.
So his question was more towards the fact that why is this thing still existing in the US? Like what is the reinforcement behind caste system to exist in India, in the US? I mean, in India, there is a society, there is a structure, but why is it existing in the US? What is reinforcing it in US? Am I right?
Yes, but like I did have like kind of a follow-up if possible. Like what, when you've gotten someone to come away from that, what convinces people like that? What convinces people? What do they see that says, oh, maybe this isn't right? Because my family, sorry,
The turning point.
Yeah.
Yeah, in their opinion.
From like
So,
going
yeah.
from like pro caste supremacy to being in favor of
Yeah,
more
like,
equality.
what kinds of things convince, it's a mindset that I can't relate to. So I'm just curious as to what you've seen.
Rabia,
That's
did
a
you-
whole separate question,
Yeah.
so like, keep that off.
So, on a general perspective, I personally feel like caste puts everyone in boxes. Like, if you're a Brahmin, you're expected to act a certain way. If you're a Dalit, you're expected to do certain things. So, everyone wants to come outside that box, right? No one wants to be stereotyped into something they're not. So, that's it. It doesn't explicitly affect forward caste as of now, but in the future, and it is affecting the whole development of India, right? So it's not something that's going to affect just the lower end. Just look at it as the racism in US. It's affecting everyone. It's not just affecting people of certain color. So that's how we see caste as well. And that's how it's affecting everyone. And that's why they need to come out of it. They need to stop associating themselves with their particular caste. Because at the moment it makes them feel superior without any effort.
I can probably contribute my bit to your both of your questions. So to the first part of your question, the reinforcement part, what reinforces it in the US? Uh, it is already reinforced because when the migration happened, when most people from they moved to the US, like early in the days. Now, these people were people who come from privileged communities because they only had the resources and the mobility to come here. And so these people who were practicing extreme casteism early in the days, they were the people in majority who moved here and they carried the culture with them. Back in India, things are still maybe not as extreme as they are here in the US because India, you still have a mix, a good mix of privileged people, lower caste people, marginalized people, everyone is there. And they're still interacting with each other. But these people who came here with their culture and their practices, they had no interaction with people who come from these communities. They were practicing on themselves. And the irony is, in that practice, they were practicing hierarchy, supremacy among themselves. But when it comes to the whole nation, when it comes to the US, they thought of themselves as a minority. Like, oh, we are South Asians, we are a minority here, and we need special rights or special privileges because we are a minority here. And as soon as they go back to India or a concept of reservation that is applied in India comes here, or if the mixing happens, they are on their toes. They're like, no, this cannot happen. I want uh, maybe some kind of benefit because I'm a minority here, but I do not agree to giving reservations or some benefit to people who are a minority back home, or if they come to the US. No, because I have been practicing these things from 100 years since ever since I moved to the US. So that's one reason that is already reinforced because those were the set of people who moved to the US. And the second part of the question, if you can repeat that.
Changing the mind, what changes people's mind?
It's so I think what 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 is a big game changer is intercaste marriages and intercaste relationships. That forces people to change their mind. Because if you are in love and if you get married to someone who's coming from a different caste, then even if the parents don't agree, they would have to agree in the future. I think intercaste marriages are a big game changer. So kudos to Kavya for setting an example.
It's awesome, thanks. The world's not gonna end.
Yeah.
Right? It's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we gave some workshops called What is Caste Privilege 2 springs ago. And one of the students who came to the workshop followed me out of the room and said, I really appreciate what you're doing, but I do want to say that I don't think that even though you recommend reading Ambedkar's Annihilation of Caste, I think it's really important that you distinguish between stamping out casteism and saying Hinduism can't exist. And so I just wondered if you all could speak to that idea.
So what I would say is, I'm from the southern part of India, and Hinduism in general looks very different for different people. Some people say Hinduism is the reason they are vegetarians. but 70% of the Hindus eat meat. Like we eat meat as a part of religious ritual. It's not like we just eat meat and like go to we eat meat as a part of religious ritual. We, there are rituals where we it's all about eating meat. So
And drink too.
yeah, yeah. So from my perspective, Hinduism is not a homogeneous set of rules. Hinduism looks very different for even people in my own region based on what caste they come from. And from my family, I am officially a Hindu, and my family, everyone is practicing. They go to temples, but we, as I said, we have a very different set of practices than an upper caste person. So, I am from a backward caste, so even other caste people have different set of roots. So my statement is Hinduism is not a religion as such. It's just a bunch of different practices.
Like a cluster.
Yeah, each one has their own definition of what it is.
Thank you.
I'm kind of jumping off of that question. So my role is actually, I'm the director of the Interfaith Initiative here at Virginia Tech, which is kind of like our religious and spiritual diversity or belonging office. And in talking about like how can student affairs in particular, which is where I am, be more aware and more proactive about caste. I also recognize that the majority, perhaps the vast majority of folks who currently work in student affairs, including myself, are white. And given India and South Asian colonial history and that legacy, trying to figure out, like, I'm probably not the best person to go to someone of South Asian descent and be like, here's how you should live your life, and here's what you're doing wrong, right? Because there's a very, very messy and painful history with that. And so all of that to say, as student affairs is hopefully trying to talk about these issues and support and advocate for our students, kind of spoke to it from the teaching faculty perspective, but whether it's, Cook Counseling Center or Dean of Students Office or, whatever it might be on the sort of student life side of things, housing, what would be, what kind of things can we be doing to be helpful in advancing this conversation?
So I have a few things that I'd personally like people to do. One is not asking for the surname when in a casual conversation. So that is one thing that you can reiterate. And second is assuming that all Indians are vegetarians and don't eat beef. Because the scheduled caste, the Dalit population and the scheduled tribe population, we make up 30% of India. And most of us eat beef. And beef is like our staple food. So it's a very huge population, and to assume Indians don't eat beef, it's offensive to us. And and one more thing, when it comes to housing, I feel like vegetarian preference is fine, but pure vegetarian preference, that's when caste comes in. So if you don't prefer having a non-vegetarian roommate, it's understandable, but then it's, I don't know how to, like, it easily gets away in the name of preference. So it's when, I mean, even if you're having the main reason being you're using the same vessels and stuff like that. So I know it's a personal preference, it's very difficult to like talk about it, but if you're conscious about it, I think that would make a difference as well. Like, they don't want to eat from the same plate as us, they don't want to cook food in the same vessels as us, and that is a problem, right? You can be vegan, you can be vegetarian, but the vessels are washed, they cleaned. The dishwasher cleans it, someone cleans it. So it's okay to use it. So if we can reiterate that it's okay to be vegetarian, but the pure vegetarian part of it, that is a problem. So if you can address that, that would be great as well from my side.
Right. So the pure impure side comes from the idea of caste. I'm pretty sure that there are vegan white Americans or Americans in general, anyone who's vegan, they would not mind sharing the same vessel. I mean, they would probably have a problem with me eating beef because they have a certain belief and I'm contradicting that belief, but they would not think of me as this impure person who's eating beef, or eating beef itself or meat itself is an impure habit. They would not think of it like that. But when it comes to caste, people would think of eating meat as an impure practice. So that's, I think, what Kavya is referring to. But in my opinion, what the other alternative could be, again, this can go either ways. But asking people of their caste position and their caste identities, and like, because I'm pretty sure if people are asked what caste position they are coming from, the only responses that you will get are from people who come from a privileged caste. Like they would proudly say, "Hey, I'm a Brahmin. I'm a Brahmin." Like they would wear it as a badge. And people who will hesitate in giving responses are the people who are coming from the marginalized categories. So so maybe normalizing the idea of asking for caste identities in a way that you are educating them that it's okay to come from whatever caste position you're coming from. Not to demean them or something, but trying to create an environment where these people who hesitate in revealing their caste identity can talk about it more openly. I think that's the core of my suggestion. Making a place for such people more accessible, comfortable, equitable.
Thank you.
I have a question. So how would you say that, because caste, it seems, is a separate designation than, let's say, religion or nationality and things like that, right? But how would you say that something like your religion, or where you're from in India actually affects like the caste discrimination that you face, right? Is it part of it? Do some people experience more or less? I mean, how does the intersection of those things sort of occur? And you may not know the answer to this question, but I'm just interested.
No, I think I can answer that question. Caste, the idea of caste primarily comes from the Hindu religion. It's Hinduism. Hinduism practiced caste, and it originates from Hinduism. Now there are people like me who have left the religion because we are followers of Dr. Ambedkar. He asked us to leave this religion because he believed that Hinduism can never give us equal status.
Right.
As long as the caste system exists, which is the core of the Hindu religion, we wouldn't get our equal status. And that is why he asked us to leave Hinduism and convert into Buddhism. So I practice Buddhism now. So again, your question of having these different identities, they still exist, but that does not take away my caste position. So if, for example, if I go to and this has happened to me, if I go to a friend of mine, if they ask me what religion are you practicing, and I say Buddhism, easy answer, Buddhism, but your last name is Hindu last name. How are you practicing Buddhism? And I'm like, I converted from Hinduism to Buddhism, and then they connect the dots. Like, oh,
Right.
oh, okay. Why did you oh, okay, you're low caste. Oh, you follow Dr. Ambedkar. That's why.
Right.
So the identity of caste, it remains with me all the time, even though I've changed the religion. And I think even if I change my nationality, if I become a citizen of it, it will still remain with me.
Right.
Yeah.
So caste is something that goes beyond all these categories. It will always stay with me no matter where I go and what I do and what I become. I'm not sure if that answers your
No,
question.
that's exactly what I think is important, because I think it's important to distinguish caste from these other sort of protected classes, right? And that's a discussion that I think we've had a lot with people, and they don't, some people don't understand that, you know, it's this wholly separate thing. I mean, it has some roots in Hinduism, right? But it's a very different thing. And so
Yeah,
I
and-
really appreciate that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I will carry with it, unfortunately, for my whole life. And unfortunately, my kids will also carry that with me.
Right.
Unless and until I follow Kavya's route and I marry someone who's upper caste, then maybe my kids will have, even in that case, then in that case, gender will play a role. So the gender will determine what caste the child is from. So for example, my wife, to be wife, if she's upper caste and we have kids, then the kids will carry my last name. Or the caste identity will be associated with my caste identity. So they would also be categorized as lower caste. And that's why even intercaste marriages is difficult in that way for men, because if you're giving, like, again, it's in India, it's believed that you're giving your daughter to someone because she takes the last name and everything. There's a whole gender discussion about it. But that in caste translates to, even if I marry someone who's upper caste, my kids will be lower caste.
Right.
They will take my caste identity, not my wife's caste identity. So that's,
Yeah.
it's a very complicated and
Yeah.
intersectional thing.
Yeah.
I want to share one of my experience when I was back in India. It's kind of a positive thing, I think, in this environment when we are talking about this. So once I visited to a friend's home for an event, and he belongs to scheduled caste family. And I stayed there for like I think 2 nights. But I felt so happy when I visited there. There was so like good vibes in their home, and everyone was so happy, and we felt like nothing different. So I think the problem lies in the mentality of the people. There is nothing much. So I just want to say that this is not a like this is nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it
this is
it
nothing.
shouldn't be something that
Yeah.
divides people, but
Because I didn't felt a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was so good. And I felt so happy when I came back. I like I when I talked to this about my family, and it was nothing like. So it's just the problem which lies in the mentality of people. That's it. I can say that the vibes I experienced there were much more better than the others. Yeah. So it depends on the persons,
it
not
depends on.
caste.
Yeah, I'll also share an anecdote, I guess. So my last name is technically from a lower caste background in the state of West Bengal that I'm from. So like whenever I used to say that I got into certain institution, and they used to think it was because of reservations, but it was not because reservations, like because none of my family has been Hindu for 400 years. So we are not like eligible for reservations at all. And it was always a general category and everything. But it's just like because of last name, people often think that look down upon you and stuff. And they get really confused when I tell them like, yeah, no, none of my family is. so yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah.
Last name is a big identifier.
But it just shows the arbitrariness of it.
Yeah.
I know you all discussed like, there's like certain negative stereotypes being affiliated with certain caste, but does it being affiliated, being a part of certain caste, are there like cultural nuances too, or is it just the like the negative stereotypes? Because you all mentioned like intercaste marriage as a way to like address this, but you mentioned like you're lit, you're educated. Is there like I guess I don't want to say like marketing, but like messaging about like being proud to be lit and educated, and that just who I am, this is my culture, and that's it? Or is it like is it more of encouraging just intercaste marriage and kind of I don't know. So that I guess that's the question. Is there like that culture and identity too that goes with being lit, or is it just being part of the lit caste?
Right. I think that's what I was trying to suggest with the idea of having a space and having identifiers that, and this is where I think we can compare caste and race. I think I want to be very careful when I say this. With race and especially with African American people, I think it worked in their favor that they did not have to hide themselves. They bore it proudly. But with caste and with marginalized caste people, because they can hide, they get away with it, and they prefer hiding. They don't want to wear it. But I mean, there is a group of people like the Ambedkarites, who we call, and this organization that the ideology is based on. I mean, and this come from a certain, like, this is very focused in certain regions of India, especially Maharashtra and Nagpur, I would say, because that is an area where this first conversion happened, like where Dr. Ambedkar went and he converted a huge amount of people from Hinduism to Buddhism. That is where the first conversion happened, and because of that conversion happening in that area, and also the historical significance of that area, the people in that area, they wear it very proudly. They proudly call themselves Ambedkarite. They have their own culture. We celebrate Ambedkar Jayanti, 14th April, like a big festival. We celebrate Buddha Jayanti like a big festival. We celebrate 14th October is the day when we converted from Hinduism to Buddhism. We celebrate that day as a big festival. So we have a culture associated with our identity, but that's only limited to certain regions and certain people who come from that region. And that's because of the historical significance and the conversion that happened in that area. But if this culture can be expanded and can be propagated to other people also, then maybe they would feel more comfortable or happy in joining us, because part of the attraction that is with the Hindu religion is all the festivals that they celebrate. All these fancy, good Diwali, Holi, these festivals like big celebration, and that's why people want to stay, become a part or stay in that celebration and become a part of that celebration. But giving them this alternative by the means of having this organization, celebrating our own culture, wearing that badge proudly, not hiding your identity, is something that we are actively trying, but it needs a lot of effort and it needs a lot of support from offices like yours and from the whole Virginia Tech team.
Tapia.
And I personally feel like we are not promoting everyone to identify themselves as Dalit, or we're not promoting caste. We're not saying, oh, our caste is better than the other superior caste, and that's why we should be considered. We don't want the caste system as such. It is a system that is only benefiting, we assume that it's benefiting the privileged castes, and we don't want the system as such. So is there anything to be proud of? Is there anything that we want others to follow? We just don't want them to see caste. That's the culture that we're trying to promote, and that's what we believe in. So we don't want to take pride in being a Dalit or whatever. We just want to take pride in being an egalitarian. That's how I'd put it.
Okay, so I just have a quick question, and I see two CEOD members here, Dr. Pratt and Dr. Graves. So I think this could be helpful for us all. So we just had a meeting, for those of you who don't know, I'm the president of GTFF, the president and future interim president. We're currently working on the caste discrimination resolution. It's gone through the UC first reading to add caste to policy 1025. But we've been trying to convey, and we've been working with Purvesh, and we've been working with some of our GTFF members and graduate students, is to try to relate the experiences and like why it's important. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think one of the things that would help a lot is if you'd be willing to share, like, why do you think it's important to have it explicitly in the policy procedure? Like, how would that impact your experiences here at Virginia Tech? Like, whether that be in like your professional experiences, your lab experiences, finding housing where you can like have be rooming with somebody who has a different dietary restrictions than you do, things like that.
Yeah.
I could add one little tiny thing to it. I think we might, or we may or may not have the word ancestry, but that's not good enough. And so if you could explain that as well.
That would be
Right.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So one of the things with ancestry and with and this was a reason that was given to us. It's a good thing that ancestry covers it, but how do students know that it covers it? Like when we come to the US as international students, we have no idea about the laws and the regulations that we have here. And if something of that sort is happening to me, wherein I'm feeling some kind of discrimination because of my caste position, then how will I know that I'm protected? And one of the ways of doing that is by explicitly having caste in the protection policy. That will give a clear message to people like me and others like me who are facing discrimination that, hey, don't worry about it, we have you covered. But now we don't know. I mean, it was only until that meeting that we had that I got to know that, okay, maybe I'm covered. But I didn't have any idea that I was covered. So to have it, to give that clear message, I think it's important. And the second thing that I would want to add from my side is people always ask for data and experiences. And this is one of the ways of sharing experience. And Dr. Bonnie Zare has also done some research to give some data supporting this in Virginia Tech. But I think it's more important to acknowledge this and take preemptive steps to prevent this from happening. Because this is a reality. This is not something that we are making up. We are experiencing this. People have researched. We are sharing our own experiences. You don't have to wait for a day when something really bad happens and then you start thinking about making laws. Laws should be placed beforehand. Preemptive steps should be taken to avoid anything happening in the future. So those are my 2 cents.
I appreciate that. Others?
I have a question here, devil's advocate here, but, how would it differ, like, will it differ significantly from the current status quo? Because what we have been hearing from them is that their focus should be on education, like telling people that caste is implicitly covered in 1025. So if what they are saying is that 1025 does cover caste and like, the only thing you need to do is tell people that it does, how does adding the word caste significantly change the status quo? Because I would put that in context, the seminars that we have on DEI and discrimination and everything in the chemistry department, that does cover caste, like very explicitly in words. And I know a couple more departments that also do the same. So I think it is more of an individual departmental thing that who chooses to be more comprehensive in their education efforts than others. So like, how do you think? So basically, yeah, my question is like, how do you think it would, like, do you think it would significantly affect the status quo?
I personally think it will significantly affect because people will get to know, students will get to know that, okay, it is covered. They would see the protection policy, they would see the protection statement given in by the OEA or the CEOD or by Virginia Tech. And if they see the word caste, it will bring some kind of an affirmation to them that, oh, okay, maybe, we are covered, we are safe, we feel safe. The second part of your question is raising awareness, like letting people know. We got the similar feedback in our first meeting with the OEA. And this organization is trying to do that. This organization is one of our goals is to raise awareness, and this event is a way of raising awareness. So we are trying to do that, but and we have been doing this for almost a year now. And I don't think even with all our efforts in the last 1 year, it is as effective as someone in the leadership doing it at a very higher level. I mean, we try to do events, we try to talk about it, but it's not that effective. We were only able to reach out. We started with a group of 12 people when in last summer, and now we are maybe 20, 25. So only an addition of, and that too, even not all people are part of the organization actively. They join the organization, but we have very little participation that happens in this area. So I mean, if the leadership has a solid plan, a foolproof plan on how they would raise awareness about caste and how it can reach out, then maybe it can work. But for that, the plan has to be comprehensive and solid. But if they don't have that plan, and if they don't want to go through the pain of having that plan or creating that plan, they can just add caste which is already covered in ancestry. Just adding it would help a lot more students to feel comfortable.
And caste as such, it's difficult to quantify. So when you add the term caste, we can bring in like certain measures to say, hey, this quantifies as caste discrimination, rather than doing it under ancestry or any other uh, terms that we have. So it really does make a difference because we can bring in our own KPIs for caste and we can judge based on that.
And also to add to it, the Cisco case that happened in California, that kind of created this whole movement. They said, give the same argument. I mean, even with ancestry covers caste, but when the person was filing the case, they were not able to give him justice because there was no clear definition of caste in the protection policy. It can be covered in ancestry, but what exactly
Does that mean?
quantifies as
Yeah.
caste discrimination? What does it actually mean? There's no clear definition about it. And if there's no clear definition about it, when the time comes, you'll be confused. Like, what should we do? What are the definition? And at that time, you would start looking for definitions, and then it will again go on for years, and the person who is a victim will not get justice at any time.
May I test out an idea? Think about the perpetrator. So the perpetrator says a caste is slur, and then the other person says, no, hey, you just did an ancestry discrimination. Do you think that person is going to say, oh, right, that's a protected? I mean, no, they're going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. I can see this word. I say this word all the time, right?
Right.
So.
And also that will give a message to the perpetrators that because the culture here is, like I said, it's predominated, it's reinforced by the upper caste beliefs. So adding caste will not only give some comfort to the lower caste people, but will also give a message to the perpetrator that if you do something like this, then it's not going to be good for you.
Because I had a follow-up.
Just to let you know, we're cognizant of time. So we have 2 more minutes, so just to keep that in mind as well.
Then you go for it.
Oh, okay. So, one of the things that came up in our lovely conversation of policy 1025 is that really only you have to reach a certain threshold for it to be considered. So unfortunately, things like microaggressions were not. But I do remember, because I came to the last meeting, that there was, I think Bonnie, you were sharing, an instance in the lab, where it was like really uncomfortable. And I would classify that as like a hostile work environment.
Right.
So I would argue, and that happened at Virginia Tech, correct?
No, it did not.
It did not. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
But we
yeah.
could pretend just for the sake of
Yeah,
argument.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like things like that, like having that policy in place for that, like if people would be willing to share their experiences anonymously with us, that would help us a lot. I know it's a lot to ask, but it would really help us make a case for having that in policy 1025.
Dr. Pratt wanted to say, have a comment.
Yes, so first, I really just wanted to thank you, Dr. Ha, and the students and faculty for convening this conversation. As you know, I recently went to India and came back, and I was like, oh, just with the complexity of issues of caste, of religion, of gender, and what's not taught in the US. And so all that I learned in the 10 days that I was there, most of that I had never heard. Not in, K-12, not in college, not as an adult. And so I think these conversations about caste, about religion, and even about gender, not just in India, but how that affects American education experiences are really important. I know CEOD is looking at the resolution and the role of caste, and so I'm going to let that body do its work. But I did want to thank you just for convening this group and for everyone who courageously shared their story. I don't think there's enough conversations about these challenging topics. And so I just really appreciate the courage, the authenticity, and the honesty of the conversation. I feel honored to have been able to listen. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are out of time. However, this doesn't mean the conversation ends. So please, feel free to continue your conversation. I just know that for us, we need to get going. But thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, fellow speaker.